All right, we are on air. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is July 20th. This is a meeting to check in on active development tasks for Backdrop CMS. Before we start talking about development stuff, updates from the PMC, the period of time that we allowed everybody to comment on the Software Conservancy is over, ended last Friday. I've contacted Karen and Tony, their lawyer, to figure out what our next steps should be. So hopefully we'll have an update on that shortly. But Nate had an interesting idea. Do you want to fill everyone in on the current conflict of interest we'll need to resolve in your recommended solution for that?
Right. So the agreement that the Software Freedom Conservancy has in place, and we could negotiate, but we don't really want to because we think it's a good idea anyway. It requires that there be no collusion or conflicts of interest between like multiple people on a project's PMC, so the project management committee, and any projects that are under the umbrella of the Conservancy. And so right now, we would not qualify under the normal agreement because Wesrov and I are both employed by the same company at Lullabot. And so to free ourselves up of that particular snag and to put to rest any worries about like Jen and I also being kind of like a block vote in any PMC issues, I'm going to step off of the PMC but remain a committer for the project, just like Jeff is a committer. But we're thinking about creating some kind of like advisory, like non-voting role that basically would just be able to see the discussions that are happening within the PMC and still be able to participate in them, but not actually vote. And so that's kind of what we're thinking that we may do for someone like myself that may still be useful to have participating in discussions, even if I'm not voting. So we're thinking that we'd probably publish a blog post saying something to that effect on backdropcms.org, and then go through the process of actually like just me stepping down from the PMC, just per our already existing like rules as to how we vote people in and off of the PMC.
So I don't know if anyone here has any feelings about that, like if you think it's a good idea. My one concern when Nate brought up this idea is that if we ended up having something like core committers should be able to weigh in on decisions about direction of the project so that they can talk about like how much changes involved and stuff like that, we might accidentally be creating a situation where the voice of the core committers becomes more powerful than the voice of other constituents that we may have on the PMC. And so we'd have to do this kind of carefully to set up like, well, who are the non-voting PMC member, like whatever we're going to call them, who's in the advisory role and what is the purpose of having them there, and making sure that that's pretty clearly outlined. So it's not just like, well, Nate's not on the PMC, but he is on the PMC. And what does that mean? So just trying to figure out like where the value is in making sure that we're really clear about stating what those rules are.
Yeah, we'll also need to have a new tiebreaker, actually, because I'm the tiebreaker right now in the event of ties in the PMC. So that'll be another fun thing to decide.
And we'll need to decide if we want a new PMC member as a replacement or not.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Although really, it might be better having 5. It's
less ties.
And so it's an odd number. Yeah, exactly.
No one has any feelings about it now. It's probably something we should bring up in the PMC queue too as part of Nate stepping down. So I don't know, Nate, if you want to leave a comment there so that anyone who's not at this meeting but who can see that issue can weigh in on it.
Yeah, which issue in particular are you talking about?
About you stepping down.
Yeah, because we've actually we actually planned this long before the conservancy ever was an issue. It's just that now we have a timetable that's kind of more important that we actually do it. Yep. Okay.
All right, that's it for PMC stuff. Contributed projects, there are 2 projects, older projects that have new releases this week, Date All Day and Content Menu. Working on backdropcms.org, the website. Jeff has been working on a pull request that gives people the option to subscribe to a security mailing list so that every time we publish a security advisory, that advisory would go out via email to anyone who's opted into that list. I know on Drupal.org, you get sort of a digest of all of the day's security releases. I don't think we have enough security releases coming out for Backdrop that makes sense. So I think for short term, this is a good solution. It gives us something right away. Our plan is to push this to production later today and test it. And then if it works, we'll kind of unleash it to the wild. But if anyone is curious about that, there's a pull request in the queue. Feel free to take a look at it before we do that.
Could I make one suggestion there? I mean, yeah. maybe it's already been mentioned. That we have the mailing list sign up on every page of the website right now, down at the bottom. And just to make it clear that you're subscribing to the security mailing list, if you're on /security, like maybe we should remove the normal mailing list sign up, because that could be confusing to people. They might think that if they're on /security and they sign up down at the bottom of the page, that it might be signing up for a security mailing list when it's actually just the general one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I don't know, Jeff, if you want to scribble that down somewhere. I don't know if you can throw in that config change to the pull request. That might be one way to do it, but we could also just make it on the live site, make a change.
That's to take off the regular mailing list form from /security, is that right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if /security is its own layout currently or not, but it might be. And if so, that would be an easy change. All right, that's it for backdropcms.org this week. Nate, do you want to talk about Backdrop itself?
Sure. It's been kind of a quiet week for Backdrop code changes. Our current version of Backdrop is Backdrop 1.71. And we don't have any outstanding critical items that would force us to make a 1.7.2 issue release. There's lots of discussion happening around lots of issues that need to be fixed, though. I know Jen brought up before the meeting one about making blocks properly alterable across the board. That may involve some like an API change, but it's not damaging because the current API doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. so the API change actually is correcting things so that they're actually useful, because the current API you can't really do anything with. So that would be an awesome change to have made and get into the next bug fix release. But no items of note. There's the 1.7.2 milestone. You can get the list of full issues on GitHub. 1.8 is the next minor release that comes out September 15th, 2017. And our feature freeze for any release is the 1st of the month. So that gives us about 6 weeks before feature freeze. We've got all of August and the rest of July to make some progress on the 1.8 release. The main items that we've got slated for the 1.8 release include adding relationships to layouts, which is issue 2134. There hasn't been any new activity on this in a few weeks, so I'm not going to recap that. But again, it needs feedback, testing, and just people validating that the approach that is being undertaken there is one that we can actually implement. Media library, or just generally improved media handling, is issue 1448. That one's a meta issue that has a bunch of sub items. The most recent work on that one has been in the sub item to make it so that files become fieldable, and that's issue 2632. Daggerhart and Al Roskov are going back and forth and working together to move that issue forward, which is fantastic. Great job, guys, on taking those items forward. The status of that issue 2632 is that it currently needs review. And lastly, in the 1.8 release, we're hoping for adding in config translation in a backwards compatible manner that makes it so that you can we can track what strings need to be translated within configuration files. And that issue is 704. And I'm volunteering to take that one on, although I haven't put up code of any kind yet to actually demonstrate the implementation. It's just discussion about how we could potentially implement it at this point. Those are the main items for 1.8. There hasn't been much since last week, so I don't think that we need to cover it any further. There's also the 1.8 issue tracker, of course, on GitHub. You can check the milestone for other items that we're hoping to get implemented before the next release. And I know in the general Q&A, Olaf has some things that we want to talk about this release regarding 1.8. Let's see. So items for 2.0, we've covered these the past couple of weeks. Backdrop 2.0 may be coming out January 15th, 2018. Even that is not for certain at this point. But there's no new items, I don't think, in the 2.0 category, so I'm going to skip that section this week rather than recapping it yet again. So if that's okay with everybody, we can go into general discussion and Q&A. And I think Olaf has questions about reference module and some options that we might pursue there. Jen or Olaf, which of you would prefer to take the lead on that?
You can go ahead, Olaf.
Okay. Yeah, I recently began to use reference in 2 projects, and then I noted after time that it's, in my opinion, not feature complete, and that I might have had used better references, which is a quite popular module in Contrib. But actually, I used reference because I wanted to support the movement to core, and I thought when I use it, I can test it and give feedback and so on. And so I gave some feedback, and had the impression that not so many people are interested in the discussion, or not many people follow it because it's the module is in Contrib and it's even not on the project pages because of a technical problem, I think. And so I had the idea if so I remembered the discussion to not put it in core immediately, and I think it was yeah, generally a good idea, but now it turned out that so progress is more or less stopped on the module, and so yeah, I had the idea if we that we move it in core more quickly to get more feedback, and also maybe more people who could help with it, not only Mike. Because I personally can't help technically. I can only give feedback, but I can't write some code. Yeah, that's more or less the idea. And And I saw that, as I said, references is very popular, and I think many people don't move to reference because they have a lot of features in references which they don't find in reference, and so they can't move to reference. And that is potentially a lot of people who would also help to make progress on the module. Yeah, so the idea was to move it in core. I don't know when, but I think from the functionality question, it would be good to have the goal to gain feature parity with references and put it then into core, maybe, as an idea.
I definitely think long-term plan, we want it in core. I think that is the right move. I think if we can get something like reference in core, then we won't have this question of whether we're using reference or references or entity reference or whatever else people want to use, because there's something that they provide. I don't know about timing. I feel like it's supposed to move faster in contrib than core. And if we put it in core, it's likely to move slower than it's moving right now. The risk is much higher in terms of getting something wrong. I don't know that there's any benefit to moving it before it's ready. I think there's a lot of questions we need to think through if it's in core, or if it's in contrib. We kind of have time to try things and see how it goes and change them if we don't like it. But I don't know. I don't like personally know what the issue is with my sites. The ones that are using references because they were out before a reference existed, and I'm not moving them because I'm not working on those sites at all. They're sort of in a done state. I haven't run into the problems that you're running into right now on new sites. I don't know if that's just the new sites aren't using any kind of reference feature, but I think that the things that you pointed out are things that we should work towards feature parity on. Not all of it's going to be easy. Like just the architectural decisions that we're dealing with in reference are a little different. Mike, I don't know if you want to speak to any of this because you have a lot more experience with how reference works.
Yeah. So it looks like Olaf added some issues to the issue queue for reference module, sort of adding for things. He added the reverse views relationship, which is sort of on our list of things to do. The list of, basically, so you can create list of items that are referencing the current node, as opposed to just things that it references. So we sort of knew about that, and we need to get done. That was sort of like one of the main blockers that I wanted to finish before we do an official full release. He wrote to add more widget types, which might be helpful. Right now we just have autocomplete, but it could do checkboxes and select. Need to sort of think through that with what happens if like you accidentally turn that on for a content type or an entity type that has like thousands of nodes or thousands of entities. So any feedback on that would help. And then the other thing that entity reference has that we don't have support, but again, plan to, is being able to filter the entities that you want to be able to have selected using views. So basically using views.
References, not entity reference.
Oh, references has that? Okay.
Yeah. Entity reference has that as well, but I don't think we should orientate our goals on entity reference because it's not in backdrop contrib.
Well, this is basically supposed to take the place of entity reference. So people moving into backdrop from Drupal, we'd say instead of using entity reference, use reference, which basically is an entity general purpose reference module for all entities. So it basically is the same place as entity reference. So if there's any features that entity reference supports that are commonly used for many sites, we kind of need to support those if we want people to switch from using entity reference and backdrop to reference in any reference in Drupal to reference and backdrop. yeah, basically, like, I agree with everything that Jen said about keeping it in contrib for the moment, just so we can have a place to work on it. And yeah, if people can help, that would be great. It's great adding issues, but we also need to close issues and to provide new features. So if anyone actually wants to help with the code part of the module, that would be helpful. Since I haven't had a chance to do it, we just finished moving and I'm getting back up to speed, so I might be able to return to that soon. But yeah, any additional help would be helpful. If it's a priority for the community, let's try to, you know, do some commits or pull requests.
Yeah, we could, for example, ask people who are more or less active in the references queue, or people from who we know who are using references, if they have a look at reference, and also to help with it. Yeah, as I said, I personally can't help with the code, but yeah. Also, Mike, I made the proposal in Gitter and now here also because I got no feedback in the queue, and I didn't even know if you noticed my issues, or if you're maybe
I didn't see the ones you opened last week until today. So
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I think we just need more people involved. It's a lot to ask one person to kind of stay on top of a ton of stuff. So I think you have a good idea of like reaching out to people that are already using reference for backdrop, and try and get them to switch to reference. So I get that backwards, use references and switch to reference. I am definitely one of those people. I'm not working on any of those sites right now, but I feel like I should get back to them and then be like, okay, before I do anything else, I'm going to switch you to reference, and then we'll see what's going on. Yeah, people are busy. It's hard, but I agree. It's important. We just need to figure out how to make the time.
That's one reason that it's important to have those issues in the reference queue, though, because a developer who might be willing to help, if there's not an issue there and they're not up to date on this, they can't help because they go to the queue and they don't see anything to help with. So I think it's better to have more issues in there than less.
Yeah.
Yes, but there are some now, so I think there's a place to help.
Does anyone have anything else we should talk about today?
Do we have any solid conclusion on that reference discussion?
I think it's just kind of, Mike will look at it if he has time. He would really appreciate other people participate if they have time as well.
Okay. For help,
yeah.
Basically, reference module needs some more work.
Needs more hands on deck, I think.
Maybe I have an idea. We could, it's a small idea, but maybe we could update the issue in the backdrop queue, which might have a title like "Move Reference to Core" or something, and we could update that issue. So because a lot of people read the backdrop issues, and so they're up to date.
Mm-hmm.
But we need some help there.
Yeah, and we can put, maybe that would be good to have that issue and put in basically the blockers of what's prohibiting us from moving into core.
Yeah, good idea.
Yep,
Would you be willing to make that update, Olaf?
I could do that. If instead, Mike, you want to do it, you're welcome. So it's the same for me.
Sure, I'll take care of it.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, awesome. Anything else? I don't have anything.
Yeah, the one thing I have is I'm actually just started a course in product management, and I'm going to use Backdrop as my project course. So we have to do like a final project. So this is sort of going to tie in with what I was talking about before about perhaps doing some user interviews. So I might be asking, I think I have to interview like 10 users or customers. So I might be contacting you guys and asking for recommendations on who else to talk to amongst people using the product. Yeah, and I'm hoping to put together sort of a product overview presentation that maybe I can give at the October get together.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Okay. Woo, that's fun. Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks everybody for watching. As always, thank you guys for coming and just having a great discussion on all things. So, okay, well, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you guys again next week. Bye, folks.